each of us in our own homes. I'd like to introduce our three speakers in conversation today for the book Living Nations, Living Words, which is an anthology of First Peoples poetry edited and introduced by Joy Harjo. Joy Harjo is the first Native poet to serve as U.S. Poet Laureate and has championed the voices of Native peoples, past and present. Her signature Laureate project gathers the work of contemporary Native poets in a national, fully digital map of story, sound, and space, celebrating their vital and unequivocal contributions to American poetry. We also have with us Eric Gansworth, an enrolled Onondaga writer and visual artist raised at the Tuscarora Nation. His award-winning books include If I Ever Get Out of Here, Give Me Some Truth, and Extra Indians. He is a professor and Laureate writer-in-residence at Canisius College. We also have tonight Deborah Miranda, an enrolled member of the Ohlone Costanoan Esselen Nation of the Greater Monterey Bay Area in California with Chumash ancestry. She is the Thomas H. Broadus Jr. Professor of English at Washington and Lee University, where she teaches literature of the margins and creative writing. Tonight, we will be using our questions and answers function. If you have any questions during the event, feel free to post them there. We'll also be hearing from our panelists for the discussion of the book, which is available for purchase on our Politics and Prose website. The link will be posted in our chat. If you have any other questions, we do hope to reach everyone that we can, but we apologize in advance if we don't reach your question. Finally, thank you all for being here with us tonight as we continue to experience our events in an online format. Thank you all for keeping us as a part of your regular programming and for supporting Politics and Prose.
Okay, thank you, Aisha, and we're on. We're live, living from, I'm joining you here from Tulsa, Oklahoma, or the Muskogee Creek Nation Reservation, and I'm so happy to be joined with Deborah Miranda, who is now, who's been celebrating retirement, and Eric Gansworth, who I met some years ago, and we had a similar love. Is it Ted Williams is his name, a writer from up in his area, whose book, what's the name of his book, Eric?
Reservation.
Yes, Reservation. Is it still, I don't know if it's still in print.
It is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a great storyteller. So I'm happy to be here to present and talk to the Politics and Prose, one of my favorite bookstores in Washington, D.C., about this new anthology of First Peoples poetry called Living Nations, Living Words, with a foreword by Carla Hayden, Librarian of Congress. And yes, this book came out of my Library of Congress Poet Laureate project. When it was announced that I was the new U.S. Poet Laureate, everybody expected me to have a project ready. As if I knew I was going to be Poet Laureate, which I didn't. And I had every interview I named a different project because I had all these ideas. But I sat with the staff because there's actually a very small staff for the Poet Laureate Library of Congress. The poetry and literature staff is 3 people. And so we sat down and talked about what I thought was important and wanted to do, and formed this project from it. And it's for this book is directly from the project, which is a digital mapping of contemporary Native poets. I picked a map in which, and you can find this, I should put up a link, but this map is live on the Library of Congress site. And I picked a map with no political boundaries. I picked a map that showed only earth and water. And I like being in that kind of map. It shifts. When you're in a map like that, it shifts everything. It does away with maybe colonization, but it does away with suddenly there we are, as you know, we are the earth, and there we are. And that was the map on which we placed, the poets placed 47 contemporary poets, and we can hear them. And the map, if you click, you can see an image of the poet. You can hear them speaking, and they're speaking about place and why they are placed where they are. Some people are in their homelands. Some people are in lands they were removed to by U.S. government and government policy, or there's someplace they went for education or just because they love the area, So there's a lot of stories and a lot of that you can click on and hear. And of course, the poets reading their poems. Now, this anthology wasn't, I asked for a poem from each one. I didn't get a selection. Each poet curated their own, curated their own poem for the assignment of this map and and what became the book, which is the poems of the poets. And a couple of things. My first concept of the map was to put every Native poet on here, not just contemporary, but every Native poet. And I remember the staff's faces when I said that, because that's a lot of. One, the maps, geography maps were great. We worked with them, and they have other assignments, but they were great. It took time and work. And then the Folklife Center recorded. So now at the Library of Congress is an audio library of Native poets, which is something that wasn't there before. So when I suggested all the Native poets, and then even all the Native contemporary poets, that's still a lot. It would have taken a lot of time, and the capacity wasn't there. But then I also said all the American poets, because we're all connected. We come, we've worked with each other. We're part of American poetry. We're part of world poetry, and we're part, and that would be another step on the poetry map is world poets. But so it came down to these 47 poets. So it's not comprehensive, but it gives you a pretty good sampling, I believe, of what's going on right now in contemporary Native poetry. It was important as poet laureate, and especially as the first Native poet laureate, to say that I'm not the only poet. I'm one of many throughout generations, throughout time, and so hence this project and this book. And so we're here today to speak to you about it. And land, another thing too, and the reason for the map is that land is crucial. That's often the first way we identify ourselves, is that was always growing up, where are you from? You wind up out in the world in other Native communities. Where are you from? Who are you people? And people can extend to plants, can extend to mountains, it can extend to bodies of water and the stories there. And so that's kind of the short background of this collection. And what's really kind of cool is you can begin anywhere on the map that you would like, anywhere. You might want to say, okay, who's living in my area? And then go there and click on the poet. Or you might find sometimes people have no idea that they're living near Native people. And but we're here, and we're very much present and alive, and we've been poets since time immemorial. And we're still here, and we're very much a part of American poetry. So the way we're going to do this is, I think first Deborah Miranda will read her poem, and then pick a poem of someone else in the anthology, and maybe read and talk a little bit about them. And then next, Eric Gansworth, and then I will I guess also we each will say after we read, maybe what we're working on and what we're reading. And so we will, and then we will open it up. We'll see where we are then. We might do some discussion. And then we will allow time for Q&A, and unless we get carried away. Okay, so Deborah, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Joy. It's good to see both of you. Really a treat. I'm speaking to you from Lexington, Virginia, Monacan land, and I'm going to read my poem, Indigenous Physics, the Element Colonization. 1. The elimination of a substance from a living organism follows complex chemical kinetics. For example, the biological half-life of water in a human being is 9 to 10 days, with adjustments for behavior and temperature. A quantity of carbon-14 will decay to half its original amount after 5,730 years. After another 5,730 years, 1/4 of the original will remain, and so on. Obviously, the half-life of a substance depends upon the substance itself. Measure for toxicity, fierceness, sheer venom. The research at hand for us today, then, is clear. What is the half-life of colonization? Does colonization reduce to half its initial impact in 50 years? In 1,000 years? At what point does colonization become unstable? Is the half-life of colonization constant over the lifetime of an exponentially decaying indigenous body? To quote Part 2, to quote a famous indigenous physicist, sometimes there are complications. The decay of a mixture of 2 or more materials, which each decay exponentially but with different half-lives, is not exponential. Take nuclear waste. Imagine a mixture of a rapidly decaying element A with a speedy half-life of 1 second, and more gradual decaying element B with a half-life of 1 year. In minutes, almost all atoms of element A will have decayed after repeated reductions by half, but very few of the atoms of element B will have done so, as only a small percentage of its half-life has elapsed. Thus, the time taken for such a mixture to fall to half its original value cannot be easily calculated. The element colonization is much like nuclear waste, an unequal mixture of toxic events with wildly different half-lives. Start with invasion, war, starvation, rape, murder, Indian boarding schools, reservations, outlawed religions, shame. Include an ongoing bombardment of toxic events over a period of decades, termination, adopting out, domestic violence, poverty, substance addiction, incarceration rates, diabetes, blood quantum debates, history books, mascots, white shamanism, fake Indians, police brutality, anger. A periodic table of traumatic elements. 3. Given the difficulties in determining the half-life of colonization, we might argue the necessity of redirecting our efforts into other, more profitable calculations. However, despite the probabilistic nature of the inquiry, this as yet undiscovered formula is thought to be paramount for our research into a chronological prediction of the post-colonial state. Recent studies indicate that the mixing of elements in unequal toxicities and immeasurable psychosocial dynamics may best be gauged not in mathematics or statistics or theoretical constructs, but in the 3 indigenous elements: story, dance, and song. In other words, deep science of a pre-colonial origin, such as formulas and algorithms encoded within ceremonial circles, drums, or clapper sticks, the spiraled helix of song, diagrams of precise footprints on discrete portions of empowered earth, stories plotted like fractal geometry, the patterned asterisms of stars, chemical kinetics hammered out on the bodies of rocks. Key to such explorations, the re-emergence of a 4th indigenous element, dreaming. This component, long rumored to be permanently lost or the unstable fantasy of treasure hunters, possesses shape-shifting abilities which have allowed it to survive long periods of hibernation, enabling structural recuperation and regeneration. Preliminary work that combines dreaming with the three known elements reveals two astonishing facts. First, a post-colonization status is, in fact, impossible to achieve. Second, story, dance, song, and dreaming do not calculate nor predict the half-life of colonization. Rather, when applied to the colonized subject, these four elements hasten the decay of colonization, pull the heavy history into themselves, break it down, the same way maize, mustard greens, pennycress, sunflowers, blue sheep fescue, and canola transform heavy metals. The same way water hyacinths suck up mercury, lead, cadmium, zinc, cesium, strontium-90, uranium, and pesticides. The same way bladder campion accumulates copper, Indian mustard greens concentrate selenium, sulfur, chromium. The same way willow, Salix viminalis, absorbs uranium and petrochemicals. And once the willow's biomass concentrates heavy metals, once story, dance, song, and dreaming do their work, the willow rods must be woven into baskets in what might be called a miraculous exponential, were we not, of course, privy to the facts. We must revise our aim, therefore, toward rapid decay of colonization or decolonization. 4. Start with story. Work your way home. Hoo-ha. Thank you. The next one I'm going to read is Denise Sweet's poem, and I have to skip through to get it. This poem really caught my attention, I think, in part because of Denise's use of, some beautiful metaphors, some beautiful analogies, as particularly the horse. That was the one that really caught my attention. And when I started reading it out loud, I realized that there's a real rhythm to it, and a way of putting the images together and the words together that just kind of takes over the poem. So this is called Palominos Near Tuba City by Denise Sweet. In the desert of burning dreams, of armadillo and centipede, I would call this night pitch dark back home. I would wait for any star to pass into dream song, or point of light called planet to whirl and twist like a tiny pinwheel swallowing me to its vanishing point. Here under pewter sky, with words out of breath, I chase poems down like wild mares into fenced corrals. I watch close calls with wisdom rear and kick against the fences of good judgment. I used to think the skies brought them home, thundering hooves and swollen bellies, ready to spark and fire the dry, bony floor, sulfuric aroma real as rain. But now the horses of white lightning gallop toward me, afraid of nothing. They rush with an eye for hesitation, ready to brush up against my heart with their horse madness. Here it is the rider standing in the wavering heat, erect and indisputable as a lightning rod braced in the open. I stand my ground and wait, ready to hold on for dear life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Deborah. I keep thinking of that element, colonizatium.
Yeah, colonization. I mean, who knows how to pronounce it? I made it up.
Yeah, I know you did. So it must be one of the heaviest elements. And I don't know if you know who, there was someone, it really struck me years ago, that came out and said about indigenous people, says, we dance our theory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to remember who that was.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Diane Million says that story is theory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really love that.
Yes, and genealogy is history.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned I'm kind of the person who, there's always one of us, and it's usually the writers who are we wind up being the genealogist because that's where the stories,
That's
you know,
right.
where the stories are. So I'm
Yeah.
always digging, always
Same.
digging around.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks so much. And yeah, so what are you what are you working on right now?
Oh,
What are you
I probably have like 3 projects going, which is why good reason to retire. But the smallest one right now is I have a little chapbook called Pilgrimage that has been accepted for publication by Seven Kitchens Press. So I'm going over the edits for that and getting ready to send it back to them. But many other things. I'm working on a book of poems about the missions, a kind of an interview with each of the 21 missions, seeing what the missions themselves would have to say about California missions and Indians, and a book of essays that has been under contract with the University of Nebraska for way too long. I don't know if they even know I'm still alive, but it's a book of essays about Isabel Meadows, who was a storyteller from the Carmel mission and told a lot of stories about my family. So I'm writing essays based on those stories. Those are my biggest projects right now. And then what am I reading? I just reread both Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, which are very kind of dystopian, futuristic, but very philosophical and spiritual as well. And I think I was reading J.K. Jemison's books, and something prodded me to go back to Octavia. And yeah, those books just continue to blow me away. So
okay.
it's appropriate for the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. And maybe if when we're not speaking, we should mute ourselves because there is some clicking sound going on. I don't know where that's from. But thank you so much. And I guess Eric Gansworth.
Howdy, all. I'm hoping to not be clicking. So I was really thankful to be involved in this project. In part, I think that there's often a kind of a gap of groups of writers, and I fall in this one really small group. And so I'm going to read my poem, and then following that, the poem of one of my compatriots, Hyde Erdrich, in our really little tiny generation of indigenous writers. So I had just finished a book not long before Joy contacted me, and I thought, wow, I don't know, I don't have anything new right now, but a lot of my work is about the intersection of tradition and popular culture. And so I just turned on one of the streaming services, and there was colonialism. And so I had like a really brand new poem set up just from this kind of a vintage, really cheesy science fiction film. So this is called Angry Red Planet. Released in 1959, a dozen years before Bowie posed the same question, this movie trailer asked if there is life on Mars. You knew it was the Angry Red Planet in question. The Coming Soon commercial insisted you'd be astounded by cinemagic. They refused to define this special effect, but they claimed Martian geography would seem believable. Even at 12, you'd been fooled frequently enough to know cinemagic was a lure. Snagging gullible fools to enter movie theaters again after televisions had invaded most American homes, glowing Cyclops sentinels. The invasion, a success. People watched the test pattern for hours, studied the Plains Indian head profile, perched atop a bullseye, providing brightness and contrast, latitude and longitude points so programs could beam sharp cathode rays, delivering convenient, defined heroes and their requisite villains. The commercial did offer glimpses of hostile alien settings and life forms, so you would witness the hero's bravery. A 40-foot tall, undulating bat, rat, spider, scorpion hybrid, Martian vermin, attacked the crew, who were only acting in self-defense, risking life and limb. But beyond the commercial, in full film context, we later understood the creature was responding to aggressive invaders, who then destroyed its eyesight with a sub-zero ray gun beam blast, freezing its alien retinas. Minutes before, they'd landed on this vibrant, distant planet overgrown in unknown flora. Only the female scientist caught a fleeting glimpse of intelligent native life. The man doubted her eyes, then decided the whole crew should leave their ship to explore Mars by destroying life forms. They so loved their weapons. The communications expert's crew member literally gave his gun an affectionate name, kissed its barrel, and posed passionately for photos, cradling his laser rifle in a lover's embrace, recorded for posterity. Cinemagic, turns out, was a simple filter, oversaturating contrast and brightness, reducing nuance, flooding the frame in red ranges. All Mars scenes glowed crimson. This polarization was designed to hide the film's budget, obscure the exotic planet rendered cheaply in shaded drawings. But instead of the landscape appearing lusher, the magic merely reduced humans to malevolent cartoons, chopping and blasting the red planet's environment, confidently claiming it as their own, history repeating itself. By the time they fled for Earth, only two survived, predictably the romantic, flirtatious leads. We'd known them at first sight. The female scientist furtively dabbed perfume on her pulse points while running tests, and the male captain inexplicably left his spacesuit gaping, wholly unbuttoned, displaying his hairy virility for her. So we'd know the other members were expendable, killed to heighten drama. The male scientist, collapsing frail, weakly got them off the planet and fainted dead against the gravitational pull of Mars, blood caressing his lips. Beloved or not, the freeze ray failed the communications expert when he most needed its frigid embrace. The film is told in flashback. Returning to Earth, the surviving scientist willingly dredged memories to save her secret love, the hairy captain, now comatose, infected with aggressive Martian life. She must recall, fainting at the sight of the red planet's indigene, screaming when a native plant defended itself after she cut it, and the captain's rescue response, hacking off its offending limbs, finally remembering how she could defeat his infection. At 12, you fall under the spell of TV. Saturday sci-fi theater believe at first that it is about Mars and the future of space travel. Your brother reads Custard Died for Your Sins, lying beneath his beloved red power posters. He saved enough to buy the family this color TV from his job after years of high school teachers asking why he wasted time attending classes anyway. He believed you deserved a sliver of middle-class American luxury, and in full Polaroid Cinemagic Red, you hear the refrain of Manifest Destiny. When the explorers land, they invoke the Santa Maria's ghost and its spectral companion, the label New World. The crew jokes of hardtack and hot coffee, used to technically honor tribal treaties in subsistence terms alone. The land is quiet, too quiet, of course. And before the female scientist does her scream and faint routine, the male captain, in casual conversation, a cocky grin on his face, lets you know exactly what kind of movie you're watching. He retrieves his pistol and claims an inheritance, telling his ray gun kissing sidekick some family lore. His grandfather claimed a sixth sense made his ears twitch if there were Indians around, especially silent, unseen ones. And he caresses his sidearm as if it were his short one. The scientist says if native life exists on this new world, it should be where they've landed. So they strap on and step out into the polarized, blazing red world, buzzing with aspirations of conquest and supremacy. In your res house, distant dreams of running water, dampened by pleasures purchased in this color TV. But you could not deny the truth your brother wanted you to see. Even in the age of rocket ships and flag planting on distant planets, instead of earthly land masses, indigenous inhabitants were still cast as obstacles, impediments to conquer in the name of advancement. And your brother believed the cost of a TV was worth it, for now you know, finally, that Indians exist beyond the brightness and contrast of TV test patterns, and you are the proof of indigenous life survives and thrives, growing stronger unseen on the surface of this angry red planet. And this is Hyde Erdrich's poem, Peacemaking. Her book, Little Big Bully, won the National Poetry Series Award in 2019. She is Ojibwe, enrolled at Turtle Mountain. Peacemaking. We long ago made a peace, a treaty between enemy neighbors, like this, striped blankets, sashes worked with colored beads, animal-shaped pipes of red stone, iron hatchets inlaid with lead designs, flutes carved to look like a duck or goose, belts woven with colored threads, brass bells, copper water vessels, red wool, rich gifts to seal the peace. Sometimes the deal did not go down. Some wanted more, to be upheld as great men. Yes, only men. We take your names with us to speak in honor of your greatness always, and when we ever hear your name, we will say, that is a great man you speak of. And we will tell the stories of all the deeds you've done, and how fine a figure you made, how arrayed in fine clothes, and how many horses, and how large your voice. You get the idea. Except we had to mean it irreversibly. Even though those men might have stolen, broken families, murdered, or maybe it was their thieving sons we killed, even then we had to forget and mean what we said. Imagine how hard it would be to humble ourselves to humanity. Tell their stories as if they were our brothers, fathers, kinfolk, with pride. And if just making peace with them made them relatives whose shine shined on us, we seek your peace now. For futures, we cannot gift amends. Unless, like this, sleep under blankets. Beads of bright creatures pollinating flowers and red stone, iron flute song, duck and goose, earth full of microbes and minerals, sun stored to serve you, wind making light and nights cool enough, water and vessels to drink. All once a given then a gift, future riches. You get the idea. We came in peace, but left the aftermath of war like mud tracked in, messed up your carpets and ate your bread, left milk jugs empty in the fridge, and worse, much worse. Let our peace be one you can reverse. No gift can be enough. If we left you and even gone, we keep stealing your summers, leaving just the storms. If we left you winters brutal beyond history, birds gone and bugs and tornadoes, all the fish gutted, water run off, it would be okay then to reverse the peace we made when you were born. You do not need to hold up our names irreversibly. Only do not curse as you say them, or please leave us off as relatives. Make us ancestors only, as worthy as names on paper, signs. Uphold the great ones. And if we can't be them, don't speak our names at all. Let's see. I am beginning revisions on a novel that should be out sometime next year with Levine Carrito. It's called My Good Man. And what I just finished reading was Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulay. It's really interesting and exciting and kind of fun when you see overlap in pieces of tribal cultures, familiar slang. I had to laugh periodically, even amidst all of the kind of heart-wrenching scenes.
Thank you, Eric. What strikes me is how much all of these pieces so far fit together. You know, almost like they could be part one, part, you know, the elements of colonization, and then here's the angry red planet, you know, and then here comes in Hyde's poem that shapes, you know, starts giving shape to this, another kind of shape. And especially it was so powerful, leave us off as please, even that please, and then there's a long space on the line. Leave us off as relatives, make us ancestors only. That is so profound. Make us ancestors only, as worthy as names on paper, you know, or if we can't be them, don't speak our names at all.
Absolutely.
That's, yeah. I've noticed how long so many of these poems are, not just the ones we've been reading, but in the anthology. And I wonder about that. I think the original assignment was to choose a poem based on place and displacement. You know, and how do you write about that in a beautiful little lyric poem? You know, I think I'm realizing that's part of it. And then the 4 touch points of visibility, persistence, resistance, and acknowledgement. Often you need a little space to do that. I mean, it's a lot of history and it's not over, it's ongoing.
Economy was tough for that,
Yeah.
for that focus book.
Yeah, I think we were all working with such big historical spans. You have to spend some time kind of unpacking that.
Yeah. And we'll always be unpacking it. Like you said, the half-life sounds like a million years. Yeah. Or there is no half-life.
Right.
Wow. So I guess I will read, and this is another long one. I might just read parts of it. Let's see. I haven't even checked to see about questions either in Q&A. Okay. But we'll get to them. Okay. So anyway, I know I wrote down the page number of my poem here. Exile of Memory. Yeah,
I had to
Exile
say
of
it.
Memory. And I wrote this poem. This was part of, I worked for a while. I took a position at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, to a chair of excellence. One, because I went to the interview, and I wound up really, I was treated very well there, and there was a nice, a really wonderful relationship that went down at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And we also went, my husband, who's also Muskogee Creek of Geobova ceremonial ground, we went because we know the stories of where our people are from in the South. And we can go up, there was even a house of an uncle we found now near Columbus, Georgia. And we went because we wanted to go around that area. It wasn't the easiest thing at all. I found out that the condo that we bought up on the bluff overlooking Knoxville across the Tennessee River, we could look down and then there's the city. It was the same bluff my great grandfather, 6th generation, stood on with his warrior friends, because they'd come up the Tennessee River from down near Chattanooga and down into Tennessee and Georgia to scout out some new horses. And, he'd been on that same bluff. On that bluff, too, there was still a kind of a ghost of a Civil War soldier, because there had been a Civil War camp up there. But I went to poetry because I had something I could not resolve, and I can't resolve everything, and it's contradictions. I think I came to that after I got into this writing An American Sunrise, because where this poem is from, because I could not, how do I settle being in these lands and we're not there? You don't see the community. I would move down near Columbus, Georgia, to be back to that part of the family. The plants are there, the water, the stories that are there. And it was so potent and powerful, but the people aren't there. They're all in Oklahoma. And so I started writing this book of poetry when I thought, think of place, displacement, is that my people, they fought so hard. We have stories of how hard people fought to not be removed, just like any of us at gunpoint. Somebody comes at gunpoint to remove you. What do you do with that? And how do you, and your roots are there. And how does anybody deal with that in the world? We're looking at all these refugee. I think I read, somebody told me at one point that there's like almost 40% of the world is a refugee population at some point, right now, 35%, some really high number. And then what about, and then we were excited because I started working on it, and we were excited about going back to Tulsa, right, where people fought not to go. What do you do with that? So I wrote poetry, and this poem came out of it. It's like going there. This came kind of early on, and I'll read most of it. It's called Exile of Memory. Do not return. We were warned by one who knows things. You will only upset the dead. They will emerge from the spiral of little houses lined up in the furrows of marrow and walk the land. There will be no place in memory for what they see. The highways, the houses, the stores of interlopers perched over the blood fields where the dead last stood. And then what? You with your words in the enemy's language, do you know how to make a peaceful road through human memory? And what if angry ghost of history? Then what? Don't look back. In Sunday school, we were told Lot's wife looked back and turned to salt, but her family wasn't leaving paradise. We loved our trees and waters and the creatures and earths and skies in that beloved place. Those beings were our companions, even as they fed us, cared for us. If I turn to salt, it will be of petrified tears from the footsteps of my relatives as they walked west. I did not know what I would find. And then I'm going to skip to we are still in mourning. The children were stolen from these beloved lands by the government. Their hair was cut, their toys and handmade clothes ripped from them. They were bathed in pesticides and now clean, given prayers in a foreign language to recite, and as they were lined up to sleep alone in their army-issued cages. Grief is killing us, anger tormenting us, sadness eating us with disease. Our young women are stolen, raped, and murdered. Our young men are killed by police or killing themselves and each other. This is a warning. Heroin is a full companion offering freedom from the gauntlet of history. Meth speeds you past it. Alcohol, elixir of false bravado will take you over the edge of it. Enough chemicals and processed craving and you can't push away from the table. If we pay enough, maybe we can buy ourselves back. And then I'll skip a little. Here, there is a singing tree. It sings of the history of the trees here. It sings of Manahui, who stood with his warrior friends on the overlook, staring into the new town erected by illegal residents. It sings of the Civil War camp, the bloody, the self-righteous, and forsaken. It sings of atomic power and the rise of banks whose spires mark the worship places. The final verse is always the trees. They will remain. When it is time to leave this place of return, what will we say we found here? From out of the mist, a form wrestles to come forth. It is many-legged, of many arms, and sent forth thoughts of many colors. There are deer standing near us under the parted, misted sky. As we watch, they smell for water. Green light enters their bodies from all leaved things they eat. The old Muskogee laws outlawed the Christian religion because it divided the people who are relatives of panther, deer, raccoon, deer, and the other animals and winds were soon. We who are relatives of panther, raccoon, deer, and the other animals and winds were soon divided. But Muskogee ways are to make relatives. We made a relative of Jesus, gave him a Muskogee name. We cannot see our ancestors as we climb up the ridge of destruction, but from the dark we sense their soft presences at the edge of our minds, and we hear their singing. There is no word in this trade language, no words to hold the power of all we have become. And then I'm skipping. A young boy, Iganujaga is in labor, so long in time. A young boy wrestles with two puppies at the doorway. A little girl bearing an old woman's spirit appears with green plants in her hands. Twins play around the edge of the bed. The earth's womb, Iganajaga's womb, or earth's womb tightens with a need to push. That is all I see because of the fogginess of time. I sing my leaving song. I sing it to the guardian trees, this beloved earth, to those who stay here to care for memory. I will sing it until the day I die. There's that, and then I will read Laura Tohe's poem. She's Navajo. I first met Laura Tohe when we were both we were both working on our BFA degrees in art at the University of New Mexico, or at least we were both art majors, studio art majors, and then we became poets, probably around the same time. And let's see, this is her poem, Within Dinéta, the people's spirit remains strong. These words are from my people, the Diné, who endured colossal hardship and near death and continue to endure. And I want to leave a little time for Q&A, so I may not read all of your poem, Laura, and that I will read as much as I can. In the people's memory are the stories, this we remember. 1. Afkada Arjinint, they say a long time ago, in time immemorial. The stories say we emerged from the umbilical center of this sacred earth into the glittering world, smoothed by twin heroes, sons of white shell woman, who journeyed to find their father, aided by Spider Woman, who taught them how not to fear the perilous journey. They say the son, father to the twin heroes, gave them knowledge to slay the monsters so the world would be safe. We lived according to the teachings of the holy people, to dwell within their the sacred mountains. Sisnajini, rising to the east, Sodzith, rising to the south, Dok O Asli, rising to the west, Tibet Nitsa, rising to the north. We raised our families, planted our corn, greeted the dawn with our prayers, and followed the path of corn pollen. Every day was a new beginning in beauty. 2. The ancestors predicted it would happen, that the wind would shift and bring light-colored men from across the big water who would shatter our world. They would arrive wearing metal coats, riding strange, beautiful animals, would arrive in clothes that brushed the earth, carrying cross sticks to plunge into Deneta. In their zealous urge, they sought cities of gold. Later we learned they came to take our land, our lives, our spirits. Did they not know we are all created from the same elements? Rain clouds for a hair, fingernails formed from beautiful seashells. The rivers flow through our veins, our lifeline from wind. We came to life, with thunder voices we speak. We fought back to protect ourselves as we had fought with other enemies. The world changed when the light-colored men brought their women. It was then we knew they meant to stay. They invented ways to justify what they wanted, manifest destiny, assimilation, colonization, and most of all, they wanted the land. One day, a man wearing red clothes appeared. Kit Carson was sent by Washington. He brought many soldiers. They spoke with thundersticks that tore into everything we loved, to burn our beautiful peach orchards, to slaughter our sheep in front of us, to starve us out from Deneta, to do unspeakable things to us, to wrench us from our land. What strange fruit is this that dangles from the tree? We feared for our lives and hid among the rocks and shadows, gathering food and water when we could. 3. What is our crime? We wanted only to live as we had within our sacred mountains, seeking harmony, seeking long life in beauty, in beauty. Others had their death march, the trail of tears, Auschwitz, the door of no return in the house of slaves. We are Dene. We too had our death march forced on us. When the long walk began, we witnessed our women murdered and raped, our children and relatives swept away in the rushing currents of the Rio Grande River. We heard explosions that silenced mothers giving birth behind the rocks. We saw the newborn and the elderly left behind. We saw our warriors unable to defend us. And even now, we crossed. The land we crossed still holds the memory of our people's tears, cries, and blood. Kit Carson marched us 300 miles away. In the distance, we saw our sacred mountains becoming smaller and smaller. We were torn from the land that held our birth stems. We were taken to the land that was not us. We were taken to the desolate place without trees or vegetation, where the men picked out undigested corn from animal dung to eat, where young women were raped. We called this place Huili, this place of starvation, this place of death, near death, this place of extreme hardship. 4. We returned to our land after 4 years, our spirits ragged and weary, and vowed that we never be separated from Deneta. The earth is our strength. We have grown strong. We are the children of White Shell Woman. We are the people of the original clans she created. We are female warriors and male warriors, Manuelito, Barboncito. We are the code talkers who used our language to save America. We are Aniwanika, who taught us to have faith in the white man's medicine. We are the sons and daughters of activists and other unsung heroes, when Indian men were the finest men there were. We are the hands that create fine turquoise and silver jewelry. We are the women who resisted relocation when the government came with papers and fences. We are teachers, cowboys, lawyers, musicians. We are medicine people, doctors, nurses, college professors. We are artists, soldiers, politicians, architects, farmers. We are sheep herders, engineers, singers, comedians. We are weavers of baskets and exquisite blankets. We are bus drivers, welders, ranchers, dishwashers. We are the people who offer prayers during the cycles of the day. We are Dene. In beauty, it was begun. In beauty, it continues. In beauty, in beauty, in beauty, in beauty. What a poem to end. What a poem to end this selection on. And I didn't quite plan it that way, but it was great. I think that came together. Came together really. What an affirmation! Because despite all of this, here we are, and look at these. We are this story. We are the ancestors, as Hyde Erdrich said. Let's see what I'm working on. I have a new memoir coming out in September, August poet warrior. It's going to disappear in this kind of, you don't want to see my background without the screen. Anyway, this will be out, and I'm working on I've just been doing a lot of events. I have a new music album out, I Pray for My Enemies. And this project, these three are what I worked on during the pandemic when I was not traveling. And other projects. And what am I reading? The Denise Reader. I can't hold it up. You won't see it. It's a new anthology of Navajo literature. It's wonderful. I've been reading that, and Ed Hirsch's 100 Poems to Break Your Heart. So I was trying to read one a day. I've gotten behind. It's hard. I've started traveling some, and it's kind of hard to carry. It's big. It's wonderful. So we have 4 minutes left for Q&A. So let's see what we have here. I don't see many questions. We have the site, the link for the map. But thank you, Connie Moffat, for the Library of Congress site. And Nancy Helgeson asked, what are the differences between Living Nations, Living Words, and When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through? And then when will I come to New Mexico again? Yeah. Well, yes, the differences are When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through is a more of a comprehensive anthology, as comprehensive as you can be when you have over 574 federally recognized tribes, many state recognized tribes who aren't federally recognized, the Hawaiian population, etc., and some of the Pacific Islanders, and then you have, first we had 350, 400 pages in which to put together a comprehensive collection, which means no, it's not everyone, it's not all the poets who are right. You know, we had our team was, and I love this part, that our experts were all Native poets, indigenous poets, who put that anthology together. And that's different. This is a smaller anthology of 47 contemporary Native poets talking about place and displacement, you know, in a time in which that doesn't often come up in this. There's a divisiveness that breaks over the history of our presence, of indigenous presence here in this country. And so this anthology is part of, you know, should be part of the discussion, you know, of, because we're left out. What was it that CNN has called us something else? That was a new one. We usually get called other because we're seen as not important because of our numbers. But
something else, all right.
Yeah, yeah, right. And my daughter wrote a really good poem about that, something else.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I guess I don't see any other. Oh, when are you be planning? Okay, this is important. Planning readings at NMAI. There will be a whole week. The last week of the Poet Laureateship will be
Nice.
in NAPO, the new Native Poets organization to support younger Native poets coming up. So they will be featured the last week of April 2022, and I see that it's Aisha up here, so I think that's my cue. This is where the music comes in. It's like, okay, wrap it up. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric and Deborah Miranda, for being part of this, and everyone. You know, this anthology is a beginning. Many Native poets out there, and thank you for Politics and Prose for this opportunity to be here with you and your audience. Meadow, thank you.
And thank you, Joy and Deborah and Eric, for your amazing readings and for being with us tonight. And thank you to our audience of our loyal Politics and Prose supporters and anyone else who's been joining us, especially in this past year that we've been hosting these events online, being able to get so many of our amazing guests, including our present company today, to read with us and speak with us and to share what they're working on, that we really couldn't do it without the support of all of our customers. And so again, this is the book. It is fantastic. And actually, I do have the other anthology behind me, so both are definitely must-reads. Feel free to take a look at our website for links to the book to purchase and for any of the other books by our poets guests today. And have a good night, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Aisha.
Safe. Yeah,
Bye.
stay well read. Take care.